Welcome to the Asbestos Knowledge Empire.
What does asbestos management mean to you?
I used to really struggle with the asbestos management at my site, but now it's a breeze.
It used to be really expensive. I was paying loads, but now I've got my asbestos power team in place. It's so much easier.
Asbestos can be a pain in the arse if not handled right.
We had to stop the job because asbestos was discovered. Now we don't have that problem.
Asbestos management is easier than you think. Asbestos management. Be proactive, not reactive. Think about asbestos first, not last.
And now your hosts, best-selling authors and asbestos experts, Ian Stone and Neil Munro.
Welcome to Asbestos Knowledge Empire. I'm Neil Munro.
I'm Ian Stone.
So today we're going to be talking about the problems with asbestos textured coating during its removal. So what kind of problems? So first of all, I suppose,
What is textured coating?
Textured coating?
Yeah, I mean,
Is that right at the beginning?
To us, it's obvious what it is. To a lot of people, textured coating. What does that actually mean? Well, textured coating, it's, if you think of it, the stippled finishes like Artex used to make or still make, those kinds of finishes, decorative finishes, that's what we mean by asbestos textured coating.
Yeah, Artex was kind of a brand name similar to sellotape.
Yeah.
So sellotape, sticky tape. Yeah, Artex was kind of the market leader at the time for producing this kind of a white powdery coating mixed with water and then is applied to surfaces in a decorative format. So, swirl, stipples, whatever you can.
Lines, diamonds, what other shapes can we think of?
Yeah, 1960s, yeah.
And the thing is, with the Artex, it contains anywhere kind of between usually 2 and 5% white asbestos.
Yeah, it's got very low asbestos content.
It has. It was hand mixed on site, so like Neil just said, they would mix it up with the water and the actual textured coating product, and then dump a handful of asbestos in. That kind of helped with the stipples and things like that, the stiffening of the actual finish, really.
And I think that then they kind of went on to make. You could buy it in that pre-made version.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's very low asbestos content. Generally, it was always Chrystal white asbestos that was used in it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's any other asbestos that I know of has been identified in textured coatings.
I don't know. I'm sure there'll be someone out there that's found a trace of something or other. There always is.
But predominantly, I'd say 99% of the time it would be Chrystal.
Yeah, I remember someone found it in the lab once and got all excited that there was amosite in it, but then it actually turned out the texture coating was actually onto asbestos insulating board.
Yeah.
So that kind of threw
that one.
Threw that one out the window. But no, you're right. So so where was it used? Well, like we said, any texture coating finish. So it was generally used on ceilings.
That's the most common use of it, isn't it? Ceilings.
Yeah.
And then walls, maybe sometimes.
Yeah, seen it on walls, the underside of stairs.
Yes.
Things like that.
Yeah, that's quite common, isn't it?
A lot of the time in like large communal buildings where there's flats and stuff, it's on the underside of the stairs there, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Hospitals, offices. Kind of
anywhere.
Yeah, houses.
I was going to say lots in domestic settings, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's quite a common thing in people's houses.
Yeah, my dad ever used the asbestos Artex, but I remember growing up and he loved the good Artex ceiling.
yeah. It was fashionable, wasn't it?
It was.
A little bit like wood chip wallpaper was at one point, wasn't it? But now everyone's like replastering them, aren't they? Getting rid of them.
Yes, like having them scraped off,
I've had it done
skimmed over. Yeah, you did.
Yeah, very common. Yeah, I'd say mostly on ceilings, isn't it? But yeah, some random uses as well we've seen, haven't we, over the years of, on cupboard doors and random locations underneath like kitchen sideboards and stuff like that. Just bizarrely why you would ever put them there, but
I don't know. Perhaps somebody had like a bit extra over and thought, do you know what I could do? I'd put a finish on that.
Yeah.
For some weird reason, I don't know. But so that basically means it was put onto generally plasterboard or concrete.
Yeah.
Brickwork, breeze blocks.
Lard and plaster.
Yeah, lard and plaster it's gone on to.
Now that is a doom if it's gone on there. The removal process of that is horrible.
That is a massive issue.
So there's lots of common uses, isn't there? So kind of want to discuss the sort of challenges or issues around the removal process.
Exactly, because each one
is different, isn't it?
They are. So you'd remove it differently from plasterboard that you would from concrete, that you would from lard and plaster, definitely.
Yeah.
So I suppose the easiest one really, the plasterboard.
Yeah, that generally is the easiest.
It's the easiest and lowest risk, I would say.
Yeah, it could be timber or another product like that, but generally it's usually always plasterboard, isn't it?
It is.
Ceilings we're talking about.
Yeah, and the way it's removed, an enclosure's built, and then the ceiling panels are removed as whole as possible, usually kind of scoring around the edge and then removing it. The sheets generally come down whole, they're wrapped up or placed in bags. There's not that much dust and debris created. There's a bit, because there always is, but generally speaking, that's the easiest for the contractors to clean and the lowest risk overall, I would say.
Yeah. It's still a non-licensed activity, isn't it?
It is.
And generally, as long as you can remove the texture coating without significantly degrading the product, then it would still be non-licensed. If you've got to seriously degrade or break up the material during the removal process, then it'd probably be notifiable. But obviously that's dependent on the risk assessment, and every job needs to be assessed accordingly.
Exactly. So on to concrete. I mean, concrete could be a bugger because...
Concrete's horrible.
It is. It can either be the smoothest, loveliest concrete substrate in the world, or it can just be pitted to hell.
Yeah.
And if it's pitted, then that's just a major, major ball ache, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, the way it's generally removed from concrete is chemicals are applied. There's one that springs to mind called X-Tex.
Yeah.
It's kind of painted on. It's
like
similar to
jelly-like.
Yeah, like wallpaper paste.
Yeah.
It goes on, and then it destroys the matrix that it's held within. Then it makes it easier for the contractors to remove with hand scrapers.
Yeah. Messy job, and also the problem with that is that because it's a white product, right, and it's got dye in it to make it that white colour, and when it's been applied to a surface, even when you've removed that surface, you've still got that stain on the ceiling. Yeah.
So you can remove the texture coating, it can be fully gone, but then there's just that white stain still on the ceiling.
Yeah.
And it just looks an absolute atrocious mess when it's done.
Yeah.
And you can still question whether it's fully removed or not.
Yeah, exactly.
That is a big issue.
Yeah. Yeah, no, removing it from concrete is... Removing any asbestos product from concrete is really hard, and due to the nature of, like you said, the surface, sometimes impractical to get 100% removal.
Mm.
So that's obviously something to consider if you have got texture coating applied to concrete is can you actually get it off?
That's it, because the only way to guarantee, because there could be crevices, things like that, the only way to get it off is to get in there. So you might even have to need to break it out and scabble that area, or get breakers on it and actually break those sections out. Yeah.
The other alternative as well is when you get down to that level is maybe blasting it to try and get the top layer of the concrete off. So you are removed all that white residue.
Yeah. So when we're doing the kind of X-Tex chemical removal, like I say, there are additional risks because you're introducing another chemical compound into the enclosure, which means that the contractors need additional filters, charcoal filters usually, to avoid breathing in the vapours, because like any chemical reaction, it creates a fume when it's going through the process and heat from that process, so that's its own risk. And then also it can create a bit of a slurry as well, because you are working on material that's really, really saturated.
Yes.
And if that's not cleaned up throughout the project, it can create a hell of a slurry. It's all over the floors, everybody's walking all in it, and it can go everywhere. It just creates a whole mess within that enclosure.
Yeah, definitely. And they'd need probably additional PPE, like some heavy-duty gauntlet gloves to protect their hands and arms from the actual gel, the removal liquid. And depending on what PPE and RPE they're wearing as well, that may need to be looked at. Generally speaking, you definitely need eye protection for that.
100%,
you'd need to be wearing your full faces probably for that, the contractor. So, and enclosure-wise, generally speaking, for removing that material on the concrete, you really would be looking at a full enclosure for that. Just generally the scale, the size, what's going in, the amount of debris that's probably going to be created by that, you really would, and you'd want the airflow within that area.
Definitely, because it is complex and you are scraping that surface off, which it can create dust and like you say, a lot of debris in the air and in that enclosure.
It basically goes everywhere, doesn't it?
It does. That's the thing. I mean, the best will in the world, going back to the plasterboard, just taking the plasterboard seam down, that can be a painful experience anyway.
Yeah, definitely, because usually if you've got floorboards above it, you've got
10, 20, 30 years of cobwebs, dust, everything, and then that just, on its own, that's horrible to clean up.
Yeah.
Let alone when you think about the asbestos issue as well.
Yeah.
So at the end of the job, how do we say it's safe? We forgot about lard, didn't we?
Lard and plaster.
Yeah, let's talk about lard. Lard and plaster.
So it's kind of an in between those two, isn't it, really?
Yes. Yeah, it is.
You can't remove the texture coating whole because lard and plaster, it's essentially loads of timber slats and the plaster's been fixed onto it, really, applied onto those slats.
Yeah, and it's got horsehair in it generally, or animal hair.
Yeah, generally speaking, lard and plaster is obviously older. So the ceiling's older than you would expect a plasterboard one. So again, that has the additional dirt and dust and stuff above it laying on top.
And it is a lot more. I find it is a lot more crumbly and dusty.
That was exactly what I was just about to say. It tends to crumble away, and it tends to be a lot heavier because it's a thick plaster that's applied onto the actual lard, the timber slats.
It's kind of like plasterboard without the paper covering either side, holding it as a fixed board, isn't it? And that's the problem. It was just hand applied.
It tends to be a bit harder as well.
Yeah.
And then obviously the texture coating on top of that. So generally they'd have to, remove the plaster itself, and generally they'd need to cut back the slats so they can decontaminate the void.
Yeah, and that's the thing, because it's like, well, where do you stop?
Yeah.
And you can't really stop until you've got a proper surface that you can go back to.
A cleanable surface.
Yeah, and that's the issue with lard and plaster and the texture coating, definitely.
Yeah. It's just horrendous, the amount of dust and debris and dirt that comes from that. Yeah, it's definitely a harder job than the plasterboard.
So yeah, on to what I was going to jump onto without forgetting about lard. The kind of clearances at the end, the statement of cleanliness, how is it confirmed and what do we do to basically say it's okay?
So because it's not a licensed activity, there's no requirement for a 4-stage clearance or a certificate of reputation to be issued. The contractor can self-certify that the area is clean. We would always, and it's good practice to obviously have an independent verification of that.
It is. It's best practice, really, at the end of the day. Yeah. That best practice measure gives you, it gives you that peace of mind, that reassurance, because getting the same company in to do the removal and self-certify, on the licensed stuff, we would never do it. And that's why we fail so many clearances, because they can't self-certify on licensed stuff. Yeah. So I would kind of ask, well, if they can't do it on the licensed stuff and there's so many failures on that, can they actually do the job, which is essentially exactly the same for non-licensed stuff? And the answer is no.
Yeah, and it has to be the same standard. However, there's not a lot of difference between removing texture coating and removing RLB, as in the actual removal process and cleanup.
Yes.
That should be exactly the same. So all dust and debris should be removed from that work area. So, it's a requirement to have that visual inspection on the licensed works. However, it's not a requirement on these types of works, but really we're talking about kind of minute asbestos debris in both. So
exactly,
it really should have that level of attention. And although, like I said, it's not a legal requirement to have that, it's best practice to obviously do that. And I would 100% recommend it on these types of works because of the level of detail cleaning that's required. We're talking about minute dust that comes
fine settled dust
that comes from removing ceilings and texture coating. I've done clearances on loads of texture coating removal works, and the dust is probably worse on these types of jobs than it would be for an RB one.
Yeah.
So it really does need that level of detail.
Yeah, and that's the thing with best practice. You've got to kind of sit and think, well, who's going back into these areas afterwards? And if I am asked the question, how do I know it's safe? Well, it's one thing to give somebody a certificate that says, yeah, the contractor that came and removed the ceiling has signed a bit of paper and said he's done an all right job.
Yeah.
And that versus a formal statement of cleanliness from an independent analytical company that's ran air tests, done a visual inspection, written notes all about how the removal's been undertaken, for me, it's a no-brainer. If you've got anybody going back into that area, which, let's be honest, if you're doing works in an area, you're going to have other people going in that area. So it could be an office, and let's just think about it. Yeah, the end users are office workers. But what about everybody else that's got to do what they need to before that? It could be the next people going in to install that ceiling. The first question they might ask you when they get to site is, "Oh, can I have a copy of the clearance paperwork for the ceiling?" And like I say, although it's not a requirement, they could make it their own business application of, no, that's what we expect.
Yeah.
And rightly so, because that's best practice.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah. How would you give those people the reassurance that it's safe to go back in that area if you haven't got the evidence to one, a statement from an independent person saying it's okay, and two, it's the air monitoring. That's really the important element, is to say, is the air actually safe? Yeah, it's a big one.
So yeah, there's the problems really with asbestos texture coating removal. Essentially, yes, it's a non-licensed material, generally speaking. However, it has the same inherent problems as all asbestos issues that we remove and that we face. So it's just something to think about, really.
Yeah, definitely. Especially if you're looking to employ a contractor to undertake these type of works. Like Ian said, although it is a non-licensed activity, you really need to be set up like a licensed contractor to do these works correctly.
Correctly and safely, really.
And to have everything in place and complete these work to a satisfactory standard. So that's it. Hope you found that useful. Remember, asbestos first, not last.